everyone. I'm Evan Schwartzberg. I'm here with Popcorn Theories today. Today is December 17th. It is the day before the big day. Star Wars is coming out tomorrow. I'm very excited. We have here today with us Mr. Ezell. Mr. Ezell, how are you feeling about the Star Wars movie coming out tomorrow?
Oh, I'm very excited. I have seen, with the exception of Star Wars, I was too young, but with the exception of Star Wars, I have seen the Star Wars movie on the first day that it comes out, every one that has come out since the original Star Wars movie.
Really?
And that will be true for this movie too, except that I am seeing it on the 17th. I have special tickets.
So that's today?
That's correct.
Wow. That's very impressive.
Thank you.
So how do you feel that this movie will be regarded? For some of you, I'm going to say Star Wars veterans, for some of you who have been around since the earliest movies, way back in the 70s, before I was even alive.
Well, I don't know because I haven't seen it, although I am cautiously optimistic. I believe that the first three movies were, movie 4, 5, and 6 were tours de force, important cinematography, and is, I think, appropriately regarded as some of the finest work that has ever been graced the screen. Not so much movies 1, 2, and 3. And I have a feeling that J.J. Abrams is going to make these movies be exceptionally strong, and more in the spirit of 4, 5, and 6 than 1, 2, 3.
So those of you who had seen many of the original Star Wars movies back in their heyday, how did you feel about the prequels?
I thought they were weak.
Really?
I thought they were weak. I appreciated the whimsy and the idea that they were trying to make them appealing to both children and adults.
Now, I am, as of this recording, I am 16, which means that when the Star Wars prequels came out, I was around 5 years old. I was actually a huge fan of the prequels. When I was a kid, way back when, I actually liked the prequels a lot more. Personally, I think it was something about there was a little more mysticism in the prequels. It sort of drew away from the pure sci-fi element of the original trilogy. But with this movie, you can see they're focusing a lot more on the sci-fi. They're going back to the sort of theme of the Jedi Order's gone, the Force is forgotten. How do you think that's going to affect a younger generation of viewers who might identify more with young Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn than with Luke Skywalker and Han Solo?
Well, so I would like to initially, I just want to respond to this idea I liked young Obi-Wan. Those are the elements I liked about the first three movies. I thought that those were the things that were good. I think the story kind of fell apart a little bit, but like I said, I thought that it was really appropriate. I thought it was really appropriate for young children because it was completely accessible to little kids. It was not nearly as dark and terrible as maybe Empire Strikes Back tends to be. So, the hard sci-fi aspect, I think it's interesting. So I think that the 4, 5, 6, the original trilogy, was just as hard sci-fi, was hard sci-fi, and so was 1, 2, and 3. The difference, in my mind, is that 4, 5, and 6 were revolutionary. Hard sci-fi like that, in a medium that could be absorbed and consumed by a wide audience, was a new idea. Now, it is it's ubiquitous. Hardcore sci-fi is what we live, right? The little tricorders on a cell phone, that kind of thing. So do I think that the third movie is going to be? I think it's going to be story driven more than anything else. I think it's about families. I think this is where it brings it all in.
So you mentioned an aspect of sci-fi that's now sort of more among us. It's more commonplace. Which brings us to the fact that J.J. Abrams, before this movie, was largely responsible for some of the newer Star Trek movies with Chris Pine. How do you feel like that experience is going to help or hinder him as he moves into Star Wars, which is a similar and yet different franchise?
Oh, I think that's a very clever question, because I think that maybe the biggest lessons he learned were the costs that he would have to pay for taking an old, loved franchise and making it new. Because to those people who didn't like the choices he made, the number of lens flares, to going back in time and changing things, there was a cost, right? And I think he's sensitive to that. So now he has taken one beloved franchise and transformed it, and now he's getting a new one. I think he's going to be more sensitive to the concerns and to the fidelity of the product. Now, I want to say that I thought he did a nice job with Star Trek, and I'm also going to brag a little bit because I tend to do that on occasion. And I am in the comic books that bridge the old Star Trek saga and the new Star Trek saga. My friend wrote them, and I'm in them as a character, although I'm only in for one frame and I am killed and assimilated by the Borg, but I'm there.
As you tend to do in cameos, die quickly.
Yes, very quickly, one frame. But I was there.
That's really
all my
incredible.
friends were, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we all of our friends, he put us all in.
That's really neat.
So I think he's going to do a great job.
Speaking of comic books, we're really just moving one transition to the next today. Before these movies were canon, or are going to be canon tomorrow, we had an entirely different Star Wars extended universe. From 2005 to the early 2010s, the Star Wars expanded universe was constantly growing.
Yep.
I don't know, you seem to know quite a bit about it, you know.
Role-playing games, there's
Right.
about 3 different role-playing games that have come out of it. I've read the books. Yeah.
So I know just enough about the extended universe, I think, what takes place in that canon after Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. In that canon, there's a sort of a new threat called the Yuuzhan Vong. The Yuuzhan Vong, they're sort of like plant people. They travel around in these large planet spaceships that are also plants. They're one or the other. And it was actually very bleak. Chewbacca died in that extended universe. It was a very hopeless sort of storyline. And as far as I know, it never actually was resolved. The Yuuzhan Vong were never defeated. But Luke Skywalker's New Jedi Order, they were spread thin. There were very few of them. It was a very feudal storyline. How do you feel about how this Star Wars movie is going to compare to sort of that dark atmosphere that Disney canceled?
Well, that's interesting. It's interesting. My gut is that we are going to start out with kind of, I think it's going to follow the exploration of the second, or the first trilogy, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to start out with a young person trying to explore who they are and their background, learning about their father and that sort of thing. And that's going to be the first movie, and kind of laying out the bad guys are the bad guys and the good guys may be the good guys. I think in the second movie it's likely going to be dark. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I'm hopeful that it will be bleak and terrible. And then I think the third movie will be about kind of hope and finishing the story, because I think that the stories are really about family. And I think that that's what this whole thing is going to be about. And I don't think it's going to be about establishing a zeitgeist for the time, that it is this terrible, bleak time. I think it's more about telling the story of this family that's in power, or is around power, or is always near power, and how they wind through this kind of operatic saga. And I think it's going to end, I hope it ends hopefully, because while I like the darker aspects, and when I was a child, Empire Strikes Back was glorious, I was still a child. My little brother loved the Ewoks, and I thought the Ewoks were fun, and I think it still needs to be that as well, or else you miss something important, which is why I'm bringing my 7-year-old daughter tonight to see it.
Great.
So.
All right. I think that's all the time we have here. I'm Evan Schwartzberg on Popcorn Theories. We're here with Mr. Ezell. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, enjoy the movie. I know I'm going to. I'm only seeing it tomorrow, but I'm hopeful.
So am I. Great, we'll talk about it.
Absolutely.